You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension of janky flash and blue snowball microphones. A journey back into a fandom in its infancy. These are the Tales from the Fandom. Hello everybody, my name is Robin0928, and welcome to My Little Robin Presents Tales from the Fandom, a show that takes a look at the history and legacy of some of the fandom's most notable moments and memories. On this episode, I want to take you back to the spring of 2013. Season 3 had wrapped earlier in the year, Season 4 was but a twinkle in the eye of DHX, and two projects were hurtling towards completion, attempting to be the first full-length fan episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. I meant the first full-length fan episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic with some connection to the original series. Even though Dusk's Dawn did release in October of 2012, beating both of these projects to the punch by almost 6 months, the fact that there are no characters that appear in both My Little Pony and Dusk's Dawn disqualifies it from this consideration. And that's a tale for a different time. No, I'm talking about Double Rainboom and the subject of this tale from the fandom, Snowdrop. Originally released on March 21st, 2013, holy hell, 8 years ago, Snowdrop was the brainchild of Meredith Sims and Marshall Watson, better known in the fandom as Zedrin. The two of them formed Silly Philly Studios back in early 2012 with their first release, Luna's Cutie Mark. It's a pretty cute short film with okay animation quality and not very good voice acting.
No! You said I could do it by myself!
Okay.
But you could stand next to me, just in case.
Just in case.
But for the time, this was some pretty impressive model work. The characters really do move well, and they look like their show counterparts without dipping into the uncanny valley of show-style poses that some fan animations can get into. By September of 2012, oh, hey, the trailer was uploaded the day after my 12th birthday, the team had announced their new project, Snowdrop, alongside a couple of short films that helped to show off the team's progression of using show-style models and animation styles, and that's about it. There isn't much that's been publicly stated about Snowdrop's production. Mostly it was just a bunch of talented fan animators coming together to work on a much longer project. While it's about 7 minutes shorter than Double Rainboom, it still became known as the other fan episode. Not you, Dusk's Dawn. With the history out of the way, let's take a look at the actual animation.
Some might scoff at the idea that something so small could hold such power. But they are the ones who have forgotten how the snowflake came to be.
Let's start with the positives. Silly Philly Studios, from their inception, have always been really good at a couple of things, and the best thing that they show off in this animation is their capability to do convincing lip sync on pony models. A lot of fan animations really struggle to make the lip sync look natural on MLP style animation, and Snowdrop does it absolutely flawlessly. There's never a moment where the emotions don't match up to the character's face or the voice doesn't match up with the movement of the lips, and that is incredibly impressive for a short that has a ton of characters and a lot of dialogue. And while the writing has its issues, and trust me, we're gonna get into those issues, the dialogue does feel very natural. These kids might be the literal spawns of Satan for picking on a disabled character, but they do justify it in a mostly smart way. They aren't picking on her because of her disability, they're just mostly annoyed that they have to pick up the slack whenever she's assigned to work with them. I knew people like this, especially at a young age, and while yes, these people are complete heads, it's not totally unrealistic in the way the kids are written. But yes, them kids. Another thing that Silly Philly Studios always had been great at were visual effects. While this one is probably the most rough around the edges, the snow, cloud, and magic effects do look like something that MLP would have done in seasons 1 and 2, which works really well for the style of animation. Moving on to story, I think that the character of Snowdrop is interesting. She's something so alien to the, at the time, family-friendly world of candy-colored horses of the first 2 seasons. She's a character with a notable physical disability that would have never shown up in the show proper at the time. And that's something great you can really only do in fan works. Show sides of the series that wouldn't work in the original MLP. I think that the connection that the team makes between Snowdrop and Luna is pretty decent, but I don't know how well it holds up with the canonicity of the series. Like, Luna still becomes Nightmare Moon during Snowdrop's lifetime, so I don't know if it really works to have her make this emotional connection to someone and then have her turn evil while she's still alive, but that's just nitpicking on a fan project. Moving on to stuff I don't really like in the video, I gotta start off with tone. I've gone on record as saying I prefer fan animations and projects to be a little bit more lighthearted and comedic. I don't mind stakes or drama or conflict at a project like this, but I prefer the tone to be somewhere around that of the series. I think that Double Rainbow, Button's Adventures, and Turnabout Storm are some of the best projects in the fandom's history because they naturally feel like extensions of the show's sensibility and tone. Snowdrop, on the other hand, is incredibly melodramatic. It's one of the most depressing fan projects ever made, and I don't say that in a good sense. It's desperate to get you to feel sympathy for Snowdrop as a character, and I think this goes a couple steps too far by trying to drum up sympathy for the character. I don't need to feel this bad for her. I already want her to succeed because, you know, she's a blind kid. That shit already sucks you into her character, so making her the victim of bullying and also making you think her mom is dead for a scene, because yeah, not showing the mom until after the flashback is gonna make an audience think that the mom is dead and try to give Snowdrop more of a sympathetic backstory. It's really unnecessary fishing for sympathy points from the audience, trying desperately to make them cry. And that isn't inherently a bad thing, but it feels really cheap to try and gain sympathy from the audience like this. And yeah,
Yay!
them kids. I'm personally not much of a fan of Snowdrop. I find the tone and its more serious nature to the story to be not as good, and it fails to live up to the series it's attempting to emulate. While the art style is good, the weird jankiness of some of the character animation and editing in the final piece really comes off as amateurish, and it takes away from what the project is trying to accomplish. I know I'm in the minority on this one. A ton of people adore Snowdrop. They love the character, the writing, the tone, everything, and good for them, but this one just wasn't for me. Moving on to what happened after Snowdrop. Overall, it was a massive success for Silly Philly Studios. It elevated the team into mega stardom of the fandom, as they had put out an insanely polished animation in an era where that was rare. They did it in a shorter production time than Double Rainbow, which was still in development, to be released a few months later. And even though the two projects have very little in common, their destinies have always been linked together ever since. They kind of seen as the two defining projects of this early era of the fandom. And while I think that I prefer Double Rainbow for its more bold choices and decisions, Snowdrop has earned its place as one of the most important fan projects of all time. But whatever happened to Silly Philly Studios after Snowdrop? Well, notably, they released what would be considered their magnum opus a little over a year later, Fall of the Crystal Empire, to an even bigger success. I'm debating making a different Tales from the Fandom episode about that project, but that's for a different time. Afterwards, the team kept at it, doing small animations while plugging away at different long-form projects. But this is where our story takes a bit of a sad turn. From around 2014, the ever-changing YouTube algorithm started to favor more consistent and longer uploads, which wasn't sustainable for a channel like Silly Philly Studios that mostly just made one-off projects every couple of months. So, their main content had to pivot to a bunch of different things. Art streams, podcasts, animation tutorials. They even launched a Patreon in mid-2014 to help cover expensive animation on their biggest project to date, Star Sign. A trailer was shown off at a couple Brony conventions in 2015, but that's about it. While not a ton is known about what the project is going to be about, there was a teaser trailer released with a logo, but pretty much nothing is known about the project. Most of the team didn't really talk about it after the end of Silly Philly Studios. And yeah, we should probably talk about that. Silly Philly Studios struggled for the last year of its life, putting out more and more content like comic dubs, tutorials, gaming content, but none of it ever really lived up to the earlier success of the team. Their most popular stuff in the last year or so of the channel seemed to be their Undertale related videos, as those have a ton more views than pretty much anything around it. Although, given what happened, it didn't seem like the majority of the team was all too keen on continuing.
The only way you can get by this as an animator on YouTube is if you make something that you know for certain is going to be viral, or if most of your following and views comes from off of YouTube. It's rare to be able to predict what will be viral, and rarer still to have the capability and desire to work on it. Otherwise, I can promise you would see a lot more Undertale Sans fight animations on the internet.
On December 15th, 2016, Silly Philly Studios uploaded their final video, with Cedrin, one of the original directors of Snowdrop, addressing the situation the team was going through against a low-quality image of the YouTube error button. Essentially, Silly Philly Studios had no future. The channel had seen a 60% drop-off in views over the previous few months, and everything they'd come up with to save the channel didn't seem feasible for the team. So, that was it. Silly Philly Studios ended on a pretty sad note. The channel just wasn't profitable anymore. The teaser for Star Sign was delisted, their Patreon was taken down, merch pages for Silly Philly and Snowdrop were taken down, and everyone pretty much scattered off to the winds. And that's the end. Everyone's doing okay at this point. Most everyone is working on their own channel as voice actors or animators. Some even have their own Patreon, like the co-director Zedrin, which... well, I can't show that on this show. Anyway, people like Courtney are working on a project called Project SNT, putting out dubs and animations and art streams to a pretty sizable audience. Zedrin, in all seriousness, does animations, tutorials, and voice work, most of it being for a more mature audience, but he seems to be doing well. Unfortunately, a lot of the voice actors for Snowdrop seem to have disappeared off the face of the earth, and Meredith S., the writer and other director of Snowdrop, has pretty much disappeared online. Or at least she isn't doing much more purely online content. The last stuff on her channel is from around 2012. She still has a Twitter, so that and the work of everyone that I could track down will be in the description. Snowdrop turns 8 years old on the day this video is going to be uploaded. And it feels weird, right? This talented team produced this project out of passion, made another big project a year later, and then mostly scattered to the winds, all because of the changing way that YouTube operated. It's weird, and pretty sad, honestly. But that's just how things go on Tales from the Fandom. Hey everyone, this is Jay, otherwise known as Robin0928. Thank you for watching Tales from the Fandom, the first episode about Snowdrop and Silly Philly Studios. It ended on a pretty sad note, so I'm gonna add this a little bit to the end. I want to talk about this video and what you just watched and what I'm doing, and if you can't tell, this is unscripted, so it'll probably suck, but I wanted to add this little bit of a vlog or update to the end of this video, rather than trying to make a completely secondary video, because I don't think anybody would watch it. I'm sorry for not uploading for the last 6 months. I've just been very busy in college again. But this is what I've been working on. I've been working on a concept called Tales from the Fandom. So this is going to be a well-researched retrospective on various fan projects, just from the history of the fandom in general. I've got a plan for a couple episodes already. Of course, if you want to suggest some, leave them in the comments. Helps with engagement. Yeah, YouTube talk. Here's that graph that shows how many people who watch these videos aren't subscribed. Woo! Yeah! YouTube talk. Maybe interview people who were associated with them, and I hope you enjoyed it. So, is this replacing My Little Robin? The series title, full title is My Little Robin Presents Tales from the Fandom. It's replacing it for now, just that I'm doing this. I did the Double Rainbow review last year, and I had so much fun with it, and I'm doing other projects kind of similar, and I was like, I should make this an official series. So that's what I've done. I really enjoy it. I hope you guys are gonna enjoy this as well. The plan right now is to do 3 or 4 episodes of Tales from the Fandom, and then 1 crossover that I'm kind of working on. It's going to be kind of touch and go if that's going to be in this first run of episodes. I have no timetable for how long this is going to go, just because I'm also in school still, and I'm actually working on a short film. I haven't decided yet. That's the fun thing about my channel now, is that I can do whatever I want. If you actually go into the description, as well as all of the links that I said that were going to be in the description about people's work after Snowdrop and Silly Philly Studios, there's also going to be a link to the merch store. As usual, the merch is up there. And there's a new set of Tales from the Fandom merch. There's a little sticker from Tales from the Fandom, and maybe I'll make more of it. I'm actually working on a merch release for April as well. Maybe it's going to be limited, maybe it's not. Tales from the Fandom, though, has some merch there. I'm pretty proud of it. I love the logo for Tales from the Fandom, and My Little Robin Presents Tales from the Fandom. And yeah, I'm gonna keep plugging merch stuff, because that is probably the best way to support the channel. Any equipment that I buy is usually off of merch money, and, you know, it helps to support the channel and subsidize me making these stupid videos, and hopefully you enjoy them. Because while my job does pay well, it doesn't pay as much as it probably should. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I'm bad at ending things. Thanks for watching. I will see you all at some point.